The rain fell slowly over the quiet neighborhood as Armand stepped out of the taxi. His suitcase was small, his eyes tired, and his heart full of hope. After 6 long years working abroad, he had finally come home, without warning. He wanted to surprise his wife Roxana and hug his daughter Mina. He missed them every single day. As he walked toward the house, he smiled. It still looked the same. The garden was clean, the lights inside were warm. It felt peaceful, but peace can sometimes hide secrets. When Armand knocked on the door, it took a full minute before it opened. Roxana stood there dressed in a simple kurta, her hair tied back neatly. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Armand," she said, her voice shaking. You're back?" "Yes," he smiled. "A bit early, I know." Roxana forced a smile. "I thought you had another 6 years on your contract. I ended it early." "I missed my family," Armand replied. Roxana stepped aside and let him in. The house smelled of fresh flowers and warm food. Everything was neat. Too neat. "Where's Mina?" Armand asked, looking around. Roxana paused for a second. She went to stay with my aunt in another city. You remember? She wasn't well?" Armand frowned. "No, I don't remember that." Roxana walked quickly to the kitchen. "Let me make you tea. You must be tired." Armand followed her, feeling strange. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't explain it. He noticed the silence. A big house, but no sound. No laughter, no music. Just silence. After tea, Roxana showed him the guest room. "Rest for now. We'll talk later." But Armand couldn't sleep. He walked around the house at night, just like he used to. Every corner looked the same, yet it didn't feel the same. His feet stopped near Mina's old room. He slowly pushed the door open. It was empty. No toys, no school books, nothing. Just an old blanket on the bed. He turned to leave but noticed something strange. A closet at the end of the hallway was locked. That closet had always been open before. He walked toward it and touched the handle. It was locked tight. "Roxana!" he called out. She appeared from the living room. "Yes? Why is this closet locked?" She smiled nervously. "Oh, just some old stuff. I keep it locked now." Armand stared at her. "Do you have the key?" She shook her head too quickly. "It's lost. I'll find it later." That night, Armand lay awake in bed. The rain tapped on the windows and thunder echoed in the sky. Then he heard something, a faint sound. He sat up straight and listened carefully. A soft sound, like someone crying. Very faint. Very soft. It came from upstairs. He got up, quietly walked to the hallway, and stood in front of the locked closet. The sound stopped. He stood there for a full minute, heart pounding. He didn't open the door, he couldn't. But a thought entered his mind. A dark thought. Was someone inside? The next morning, Armand tried to act normal. He had breakfast with Roxana and asked again about Mina. "Tell me exactly where she is," he said. "I'll call her." Roxana hesitated. "She doesn't have a phone. She's still sick. My aunt's house is in a poor area. No signal." Armand stared at her. He knew she was lying. He just didn't know why. Later that day, he went to the neighbors to say hello. They were surprised to see him. One old neighbor, Mrs. Fariha, said something that made his skin go cold. "Mina? I haven't seen her in years. Is she still abroad with you?" Armand forced a smile. "No, she was supposed to be here." "Strange," the neighbor said. "We thought you took her with you. Roxana always says she's out of town." Armand's hands shook. He thanked her and returned home. That night, he stood again near the locked closet. And again, he heard, "Give me a faint knock," then silence. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He knew someone was inside, and the secret behind that door was darker than he ever imagined. The next morning, Armand couldn't think of anything except the locked closet. His heart was heavy, and his mind full of questions. He tried to act normal, but inside he was boiling with worry. Something was wrong. He felt it in his bones. At breakfast, Roxana smiled and served him tea. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. Arman nodded slowly. I kept thinking about Mina, he said. I really want to talk to her. Ruxana's hands paused for a second, then moved again. I told you she's not feeling well. I'll try to get my aunt's number later. Arman looked straight into her eyes. No need. I'll go there myself. Ruxana froze. Her lips trembled just a little. It's far, and the roads are bad right now because of the rain. Arman didn't reply. He just sipped his tea and kept watching her. Later that day, when Ruxana went to the market, Arman rushed upstairs. He stood in front of the closet again, the same place where he had heard the faint crying. He pulled on the handle. Still locked. He searched every drawer in the house for the key, but it was nowhere. Then he remembered something. Ruxana always kept her important things in the kitchen drawer, the one near the stove. He opened it and found a bunch of keys tied together. One of them looked old and rusty. He grabbed it and rushed upstairs. His hands shook as he placed the key in the lock. It clicked. The door creaked open slowly. At first, he saw nothing, just darkness. But then, in the corner, he saw something move, a small figure. A girl. His breath stopped. It was Mina. She looked thinner than he remembered. Her hair was long and tangled. Her eyes were wide with fear. Her hands covered her face as light entered the room. Mina, Arman whispered, stepping closer. She looked up, confused. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Baba, she finally whispered. Arman dropped to his knees and hugged her tightly. His heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I'm here, Beta. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. She clung to him like a baby, tears falling on his shoulder. The small room smelled like dust and old clothes. There was only a thin mat on the floor and a torn blanket. A small bowl of stale bread sat in the corner. How long have you been here? He asked, wiping her tears. She shook her head, unable to speak more. He carried her down the stairs and placed her gently on the sofa. Her hands trembled as she held his arm. He gave her water. She drank slowly, as if afraid it would be taken away. Then, he heard the front door. Ruxana had returned. When she saw Mina in the living room, her face went pale. You opened the closet, she whispered. Arman stood up. His voice was calm but cold. What did you do to my daughter? Ruxana didn't answer. 6 years, Arman said. 6 years I trusted you. I sent money every month for her education, for her health, and you locked her in a dark room like an animal. Ruxana took a step back. You don't understand. She was disobedient. She lied. She cried all the time. I did it for her own good. Arman's fists clenched. You're sick. He took out his phone and called the police. Mina held his hand tightly. Her eyes begged him not to let go. He looked down at her and nodded. No one will ever hurt you again. Ruxana panicked and tried to run, but Arman stopped her. You're not leaving. Not this time. The police arrived quickly. Arman showed them the closet. The officers looked shocked. One of them gently lifted Mina and carried her to the police car, where she would be taken to the hospital. Ruxana was arrested on the spot. But even after she was gone, the house didn't feel peaceful. The walls were still heavy with silence. Arman sat by Mina's hospital bed, holding her hand. She was asleep, but her fingers didn't let go. He looked at her face, thin, pale, but beautiful. His daughter, the pain she had suffered would take time to heal. But one thing was clear. She was free now, and the door that had kept her hidden was never going to be locked again. The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of machines. Arman sat beside Mina's bed, watching her sleep. Her small hand was still wrapped around his finger. Even in her sleep, she didn't want to let go. The doctor entered quietly. She's weak, the doctor said. She hasn't had proper food or sunlight in years, but with time, she'll recover. Arman nodded slowly. Thank you, doctor. But inside, his heart was breaking. How could he have left her for so long? How did he not know what was happening under his own roof? He remembered the last time he saw Mina. She was only 6 years old. She had cried when he left for work abroad. "Come back soon, Baba," she had said, hugging him tightly. He had promised he would, but life had pulled him away. He stayed longer than planned, working hard to build a future for her. And all the while, she was locked in a closet. Armin leaned closer to her. "I'm so sorry, Mina, I failed you." Suddenly her eyes opened. She blinked at the ceiling, then turned to him. "Are you really here?" she whispered. "Yes, Beta, I'm here, and I'm never leaving again." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I thought you forgot me." Arman shook his head. "Never, I was lied to. But now I know everything, and I'll never let anyone hurt you again." She looked at him carefully. "Where's her?" "Gone," he said. "She won't come near you again, I promise." Mina tried to sit up, but her body was too weak. Armin gently helped her, placing pillows behind her back. "I had a diary," she said. "In the closet. I wrote in it. Every day." Arman's eyes widened. "A diary?" She nodded. "I used to talk to you in it, pretend you were reading it." Armin felt a lump in his throat. "I'll get it, Mina. I'll find it." That evening he returned to the house. The police had sealed Ruxana's room, but they allowed Arman to search the closet where Mina had stayed. He stepped inside the dark, dusty space once more. This time, he saw things clearly. A small drawing on the wall, stick figures of a man, a little girl, and a son, a broken doll with missing arms, a small notebook under the torn blanket. He picked it up carefully. On the first page, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Dear Baba, I miss you." His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Each one was filled with drawings, tiny letters, and simple messages. Some said, "I'm hungry." Others said, "I want to go outside." And many ended with, "Please come back soon." Tears rolled down Armin's face as he closed the book, held it to his chest like it was gold. Back at the hospital, Mina's eyes lit up when she saw the diary. "You found it," she said, weak but smiling. "I did," Armin whispered, "and I read every word." They sat together, flipping through the pages. Some pages made them cry, others made them laugh softly. Mina pointed to one drawing. "That's you, Baba, with a big suitcase. And that's you with 2 ponytails." Arman smiled. They stayed like that for hours, father and daughter finally reunited, finally safe. But the pain wasn't over yet. The police were still investigating. Ruxana had been hiding more than just Mina. There were lies about money, school fees, and even forged letters sent in Armin's name. Armin's mind was now full of questions. What else had Ruxana done in those 6 years? Why had no one noticed the girl was missing? And how had she kept the secret for so long, behind a locked door? He looked at Mina again. So strong, so brave despite everything. She had survived a nightmare. And now, together, they would uncover the rest of the truth. The story wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. The next morning, Armin stood at his gate and stared at the neighborhood. The same neighbors who had smiled at Ruxana, the same people who had brought sweets on holidays, the same people who lived around his house. While his daughter cried in a closet just upstairs, he walked down the street slowly. People looked away. Some crossed the road. Others closed their doors quietly. But one old man stepped forward. It was Mr. Shafik, who lived across the street. He was in his 70s and walked with a stick. "I'm sorry, Arman," he said gently. "We should have spoken up." Arman turned. "You knew?" Mr. Shafik sighed deeply. "We heard things. Sometimes a child's cry. Sometimes strange noises at night. But Ruxana always had an excuse. She said your daughter had gone to boarding school. She said the sounds were just cats in the walls. And you believed her?" "We wanted to," Mr. Shafik admitted. "It was easier to believe a lie than ask hard questions. And maybe we were afraid." Arman's voice trembled. "My daughter could have died. She was right there all this time." Mr. Shafik lowered his head. "We failed her, we failed you." Arman nodded once, not in forgiveness, but in anger that even adults had turned their faces away. He walked on, thinking of how Roxana had fooled everyone. Her sweet voice, her well-kept garden, her friendly waves. It was all a mask. Back at the hospital, Mina had started eating a little more. Nurses said she smiled now, just a little, but only when Armin was near. She clutched her diary like a shield. It was her proof, her voice from all those silent years. That evening, Armin sat beside her again. "Mina, do you remember if anyone ever came to the house while I was gone?" She nodded. "Once, a lady from school came. She knocked on the door, but Mama told me not to make a sound." Armin's eyes narrowed. "What lady?" "I don't know her name. She said she was from school. She asked about my homework." That was strange. Armin had sent school fees every year. He took out his laptop and checked old emails. Roxana had sent forged school reports for years. She had lied about everything. He drove to the school the next day with those fake reports in hand. The principal looked shocked. "Sir, your daughter never returned to school after you left the country." "What?" Armin asked, voice rising. "We tried calling, we even sent someone once, but no one answered. And then a letter came saying you were taking her abroad." Armin slammed the table. "That letter was fake. I never took her anywhere." Principal looked heartbroken. "We're so sorry, sir. We should have checked harder. We should have done more." Everyone had excuses, but no one had acted. No one had knocked down the door. That night, Armin returned home, broken again. He walked into Mina's old room. It was still filled with her toys, untouched but dusty, as if time had frozen. In the closet, he found a tiny dress with flowers. It was what she wore the day he left. She had waited for him to come back, wearing the same dress for years in her drawings. He sat down on the floor and wept, not just for his daughter, but for a town that looked away, for a world that let silence become normal. But that silence was broken now. Armin made a promise. No more hidden closets, no more unheard cries, and the next morning he called the news. He was ready to tell the world what Roxana had done, and what others had allowed to happen. But, deep inside, he still wondered, why did Roxana do this? What was she hiding all these years? And was Mina the only one? The truth was still unfolding. The news spread fast. Within hours, Armin's house was surrounded by cameras, reporters, and police. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. How did a child live in a closet for 6 years without anyone knowing? Armin stood at the gate holding Mina's small diary. His hands trembled, but his eyes were clear. "She wrote everything in here," he said to a reporter. "She counted days, nights, dreams, and fears. People cried listening to her words. But Armin was not done." He walked back inside the house. With the police, something was still bothering him, a feeling like there was more to discover. "Sir," one officer said, "we searched the whole house. There's no sign of other abuse." Armin shook his head. "No, there's one place left." He pointed to a small wooden door near the kitchen floor. The basement. It had always been locked. Roxana had said it was filled with old junk. Armin believed her, until now. The officer broke the lock. They slowly went down the narrow stairs. Dust filled the air. The walls were lined with shelves covered in sheets. But something strange caught Armin's eye. A box. With his name on it. He opened it carefully. Inside were torn photos, letters, and a small baby's blanket. His hands froze. The letters were all from his first wife, Mina's real mother. He picked one and read aloud. "Armin, if you ever find this, please forgive me. I tried to speak the truth, but Roxana wouldn't let me." Armin's knees weakened. "What is this?" More letters followed. Some were never sent. Some had words crossed out in panic. The truth spilled out. Roxana hadn't just abused Mina. She had destroyed every trace of the real mother's memory. She had hidden everything, even his late wife's belongings. Why? the officer asked, shocked. Armand didn't answer. He walked further in and found an old box labeled "Do Not Open." Inside was a birth certificate, but not of Mina. It was of another child. Armand stared at it. The name said, Kiran Ruxana. Date of birth, 10 years before Mina was born. "Who is this?" he whispered. The officer looked confused. Did Ruxana have another child? Armand couldn't speak. Was this why she hated Mina? Did she lose her own child? Was Mina a target of silent revenge? He ran back upstairs, thoughts racing. Mina was still at the hospital, still fragile, still healing. She needed answers, but gentle ones. At the hospital, he sat by her side again. "Mina," he said softly. "Did Mama ever talk about someone named Kiran?" Mina nodded slowly. She had a photo, but she used to cry when she saw it. Then one day, she tore it up. Armand held his head in pain. The truth was beginning to form a picture. Ruxana had a child once. That child was gone. No one knew how or why. Maybe she blamed fate. Maybe she blamed herself. Or maybe she blamed Mina, the child her husband still loved. And in her broken mind, Ruxana had tried to erase Mina's existence, like someone had erased her own child. Armand whispered, "She wasn't just cruel. She was lost." But that didn't excuse her crimes. Outside the hospital, the police had already arrested Ruxana. Her trial was about to begin. People in town were angry, but many were also silent, because they knew they hadn't done enough either. That night, Armand stood by Mina's bed. He held her tiny hand. "I'm sorry I left you. I didn't know. But I should have." Mina looked at him, eyes soft. "You came back." Those words broke him again. Because despite everything, she still believed in him. The courtroom was packed. People sat quietly, eyes fixed on the woman in handcuffs. Ruxana. Her polite smile was gone. Her clothes were wrinkled, her eyes empty. Across from her sat Armand, holding Mina's diary in one hand and her photo in the other. Beside him sat the officer who found the hidden basement. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Then the trial began. The lawyer stood up and pointed at Ruxana. "This woman locked her stepdaughter inside a closet for 6 years. He had no school, no sunlight, no love, just darkness and pain." Gasps filled the room. Ruxana didn't look up. Armand's heart pounded. He still remembered the sound Mina made when he first opened that closet door, the way she flinched, even from light. The defense lawyer stood up. "Your Honor," he said, "we don't deny she kept the girl in that room, but we ask the court to consider mental health. Ruxana suffered great trauma. She lost her only child years ago." The room went silent. Everyone looked at Ruxana. She finally raised her eyes and spoke. "She reminded me of my daughter," she whispered. "The way she walked, smiled. Every time I saw her, I felt like I lost Kiran again." She paused, breathing heavily. "I didn't want to hurt her. I just couldn't love her." Tears rolled down her cheeks. Armand's hands curled into fists. He stood. "My daughter wrote in her diary every night," he said, voice shaking. "She wrote how hungry she was, how scared, how cold." He held up the diary. "She didn't know what day it was, but she never hated you. She still called you Mama." The judge looked moved. Ruxana closed her eyes. Mina was not in court. She was still healing, but her words, written in small, innocent letters, were being read aloud. "Mama doesn't like noise, so I stay quiet. I miss Papa. Maybe he forgot me. Maybe if I be good, Mama will let me out tomorrow." People cried. Even the judge wiped his eyes. "I ask for justice," Armand said. "Not revenge, just justice for my little girl." After hours of testimony, the judge finally spoke. "Ruxana is guilty of child abuse, neglect, and emotional cruelty. Her punishment, 25 years in prison." Ruxana didn't fight it. She just looked down and whispered, "I'm sorry." But no one clapped. No one cheered, because this wasn't a victory. It was a wound that could never fully heal. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed Armin. He said nothing. He just looked at the sky and whispered, "I'm taking her far away from here." That evening, Armin returned to the hospital. Mina was awake. She was drawing with crayons a nurse had given her. When she saw Armin, she smiled and asked, "Can I draw our new house now?" He sat beside her. "Yes," he said softly. "Anywhere." "You want?" She began drawing. A house with windows, a big tree, and two people, holding hands. No closets, no locks, just light. A few weeks later, the sun rose over a small, quiet town far from the city. Armand opened the window of their new home. Fresh air flowed in. The smell of morning tea and fresh bread filled the room. And behind him, Mina laughed. She was chasing a kitten in the living room, barefoot, happy, and free. No more locked doors, no more fear, just love. After the courtroom, Armand had taken Mina far away from the place that held her pain. He bought a small cottage in the hills. Not big like his old house, but warm, safe. Exactly what Mina needed. Each room had color, paintings she made, flowers from the garden, toys. On the floor, and on her bedroom door, a small hand-painted sign said, "Mina's world, full of light." One morning, Armin walked into her room and saw her staring at the wall. It had the drawing she made in the hospital, of her dream home. She had taped it up beside her bed. He smiled. "You remember that?" he asked. Mina nodded. "I made it. Before I knew we'd come here." Armin sat beside her. "You dreamed it, and now it's real." Mina leaned her head on his shoulder. "Papa," she whispered, "will you leave again?" His heart broke. He gently kissed her head. "Never again." "Promise." Every day Mina grew stronger. She joined a nearby school. At first she was shy, afraid of other kids. Loud sounds made her jump, but slowly, she smiled more, laughed louder, even danced in the rain. One day she stood on stage at school. She read a short story she wrote. Once there was a little bird locked in a box. She forgot how to fly. But one day someone opened the box. He didn't teach her to fly, he just gave her the sky. The audience clapped. Armin clapped with tears in his eyes. He knew she was talking about herself, about how she survived, about how she was healing. Back at home, they had a small photo frame on the wall. It had two pictures, one of Armin and his late wife, and one of Mina smiling wide, holding a paintbrush. It reminded them both where they had come from, and how far they had come. One night as they sat on the porch watching stars, Mina said, "I still have the diary." Armin looked at her. "You don't have to read it," she nodded. "I know, but I want to keep it. It reminds me I was strong." He smiled proudly. "You're stronger than anyone I know." Then after a pause, she looked up and said, "Papa?" "Yes? Can we adopt another child someday? One who's still inside a dark box?" His heart stopped, and then it melted. He took her hand. "Yes, we can." Because now both of them knew. Home wasn't just a place, it was a feeling, a promise, and sometimes a second chance.